Now, in this recording, it's a conversation I had with a client. So I'm on the job and I'm having a conversation. And this particular scenario has happened to me a couple of times where I meet people all the time and we have conversations. I wouldn't say I'm a pretty good personable person because I rather much be an introvert, but I can't help being lovable, so people talk to me. I'm just kidding. But there was a couple of times where people would ask me what do I do for fun. After we have a conversation, get to know each other. And I would tell them that I spend a lot of time with my kids, and my life evolves around my kids, which is true. Any hobbies that I have, I include them to be with me. So my spare time is dedicated to them. And I will admit that once in a while I do go off on my own to do my own thing, my own personal hobbies and stuff, and just do those on my own. But for the most part, in this conversation here, I'm talking to this person, and same conversations. What do you do for fun, and things like that, and do you have kids, and normal adult conversation here. And of course, this is around Christmas time now. So, and any major holidays is always the same questions here in the United States. Like if it's Thanksgiving, the questions I might be asked is, you get together with family to be during Thanksgiving, uh, or in this case, Christmas is just around the corner. So they're asking, hey, doing anything special for Christmas? Like, traveling to see your family and all that, or what are you going to do with the kids and, things of that nature. So this person asked me, what am I doing for Christmas? Am I doing anything special? Usually I would to say, I'm going to hang out with the kids and I'll leave it at that. But lately I've been telling the truth of my household. And in this case, I told the guy, well, Christmas is a touchy subject around my household, being that my wife is a Jehovah Witness, and she doesn't celebrate Christmas, but I do in a certain extent where it doesn't really bother me. I just, I like the time off. I like to be with the kids. Personally, I think Christmas is over commercialized, and the line of having Santa Claus, being taught to the kids, and just for them to be let down later on to find out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. I really I'm not too thrilled with that aspect of it because I knew how it felt when I was a kid when I found out Santa Claus didn't commit it, wasn't real. I found that on my own, by the way. But I don't get into those details or anything. But I told them, we don't really celebrate Christmas around our household, but I do so in my own little way where, I buy them a gift or we go out to dinner, or basically I spend a lot of time with the kids during that time of the year. So it's not awkward for me as personally as an example to my kids that Christmas is not all that bad. It doesn't have to be this commercialized juggernaut for you to buy stuff and be all stressed out buying people gifts and things like that. But in this case, I just kept it simple and say, well, we don't Christmas is not celebrated in our household to that extent because my wife is a Jehovah Witness, and she is attempting to teach her kids her way as far as her religion aspect of Christmas. And it was a surprise when this person told me that he fully understood what it was all about because he was partially raised as a Jehovah Witness when he was a kid. So this person got introduced to the Jehovah Witnesses between the age of 6 through early teens. And it was his stepfather that was into it, not fully, as you will hear later on. It was his grandmother from that side of the family that was heavily into it. So he actually knew the terminology and the culture of the Jehovah Witnesses, but he's not in it now. on his own, he figured out that it wasn't for him, and he didn't follow that route to being a Jehovah Witness, even though he was, somewhat into it. So that was really a surprise, because currently in this job that he has right now, this client, it's one of those jobs that is highly discouraged from the Jehovah Witness society. It's one of those jobs that are somewhat prohibited, not on paper, but the culture is they are highly discouraged in having this particular job. And there's a big laundry list of jobs out there, so pick one of those and that'll be it. But it's one of the top 5, I would say, that of jobs that Jehovah Witnesses will not allow their congregants to have by culture. He hasn't been a Jehovah Witness. He was never baptized, but he hasn't been in that environment for, I would say, a good 20 years. But it's surprising how the jargon comes back to him. He on his own, he would, say something about, oh yeah, that's disfellowshipping, and he actually called it the truth. So that terminology and that sort of sinking in of that culture was still somewhat ingrained into him. I don't think he's physically out, mentally in type of JW. I think he's an agnostic pretty much. That's what I gather. But the programming is still in him, where he knows that, the terminology has come back to him really quick. And we were talking like we were both, study Jehovah Witness studies or unbaptized publishers. And that was kind of freaky. But, okay, I'm just going to shut up here, and I'm going to give the recordings right here. And you'll see how this one particular person has escaped the Jehovah Witness clutches of becoming a Jehovah Witness. Here it is.
Would sometimes celebrate it and wouldn't. I don't know. It was definitely challenging.
It is, man. I'm married to one, so and you can't fight them.
And I went to the meetings. I went to the King Hall for a while and
did you
checked it out. And I'm open-minded, but I got out of it because I asked for questions, and it's kind of like all religions, we don't really have answers, So if you can't really answer my questions, then I kind of believe in just interpreting it, Bible for myself, and my own beliefs are my beliefs, and
exactly.
I have morals, and I live by them, and hopefully that works out for me someday.
Bottom line, according to them, Jesus is not the mediator. It's on their publications and stuff, so it's not, and that's one of those little gotchas that they don't talk about really, but it's there in their, what do you call it, the leadership teacher,
yeah. In the Wake stuff, the magazines, or are you talking about their elders and stuff?
Both.
I just know they don't believe in the Trinity.
Yeah.
All the birthdays and holidays are pagan holidays, and
yeah.
I mean, I understand their reasoning on some of the stuff, and that's fine. But it was just I guess it's for all religions across the board. But it's how did God get here? Where did He come from?
Exactly.
Who created God? Oh, He just is. But it's I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that. So.
Oh man, but I hear you.
But I mean,
I'm an agnostic, so it's I don't disbelieve, but then again, I don't believe.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying it's I don't know what I believe that it's nice to have that reasoning and hope that we came from a higher power and there's something more out there than just for us to keep destroying our own existence.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, it's you never know. I don't want to be one of those people that is brainwashed by literature and people telling me to believe something because that's the way they were brought up from a little kid.
exactly.
You know what I mean? Without questioning things and asking questions. Like, I'm not gonna.
And with them,
if
if you're baptized, you're pretty much under their umbrella. And if you do question it, they'll kick you out.
Yeah,
like
disfellowship,
yeah. I'm sort of like a underground activist in a way, you know. So I'm trying to. My main goal is not to have my girls grow up in that. But you can't fight them straight on and be like the bad guy and say, no, you can't do this and that and the other, because
that definitely makes it complicated.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest things with my previous relationship. My ex, she had 2 kids from another marriage, so my daughter is 12. She's gonna be a teenager soon, and my son's 15. But I call them, you know, my kids, but they're hers from another marriage. But I raised them for about 7 years. Daughter was 3 or 4 when I came in the picture. So she had different beliefs, you know, different belief system, and believe in spoiling them and no discipline. And that's hard for me because that's not how I was brought up, and I don't believe that's right. Like, you can't teach kids stuff by just giving them, and trying to be their best friend. And she was more of a want-to-be best friend instead of a parent. You know?
Gotcha.
So that was our biggest struggle, and I think that's kind of probably one of the main reasons we didn't work out. But yeah, it's hard when you have raising kids with someone that has different belief systems and morals.
And as far as her point of view, anything I say is persecution towards them and stuff.
Yeah.
So I gotta fight a little bit smarter and stuff, and
you gotta kind of just talk to the girls when you have time and like let them know, hey, look, have an open mind. Don't just believe everything you're told.
Exactly.
You know, and hopefully someday when they get of age to think rationally for themselves, they'll look at that and think about it.
But I got to interject now because the doctrine will totally takes effect, and next thing you know, they're talking.
People
against.
Get so carried away with it, man. They get immersed in it, and it trips me out. Like, I get it, you got to be committed and believe in it. But
so, if you don't mind me asking, what age did you get exposed to the JWs?
I think it was around 6 or 7.
6 or wow.
Yeah.
And then
I went to the meetings, like my book study on Monday, meeting on Wednesday and Sunday. But I mean, I never got baptized, and I was pretty strong-willed early on, mentally, like as far as
critical thinking skills was
so I
right there.
I wasn't gonna jump into that kind of a commitment without knowing that's really what I wanted.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Did your mom get into it too, or?
She kind of dabbled in the book study, or Bible study. Went to a few meetings, but she never really got into it. And my stepdad, he wasn't really into it either. It was his mom.
Oh,
so I still consider her my grandma, and I'm really close with her. And I love her. And to give her credit, she was definitely a huge factor in, keeping me out of trouble and having good morals. But I just kind of knew, for myself, like, hey, it's just not.
Yeah.
I agree with some of the thinking, but there's a lot of things that I have a hard time with, and I wasn't gonna commit to get baptized and go down that road. So,
You ever been to their big conventions?
Oh yeah, I used to go to the conventions all the time. I was pretty involved. I just never.
They never took.
Got baptized. I would go out and field service sometimes, with my grandma.
My wife, she was disfellowshipped, and that's how we met.
Okay.
Because they don't really condone dating or seeing worldly people and stuff. So
for marriage or whatever. Yeah.
So we met and everything, and fell in love and all that good stuff. And she went back to it. So I guess marrying me, we married about a year later, and yeah, it was right. We're still married 20 years later or so. And she went back to it like a year later, and I didn't suspect anything. To me, it was just like Catholics or Protestants or stuff like that, and they just have a few quirks there and everything. And now always under the belief of freedom of religion and all that good stuff. But then I was going to their meetings and actually paying attention, listening to what they're saying, and especially the conventions, because we would go. It would be like in another city, and we'll make it a weekend out of it and stuff, and just sitting through it and everything, listening to their message, and I was like, wow, this is out there, you know. I mean, the personally, my opinion is like the us against them, and this, that, and the other, and I was like, no, that's really not Christian, really, you know, in my head.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been to quite a few different religious churches, you know, different Mormon and like Baptist. I've tried different ones just to, you know, see, because people have invited me, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'll go, I'll check it out. My uncle is Mormon, like a lot of my family's Mormon also, and I went and listened. And if you go to enough of them, honestly, it just seems like there's a lot of them where that's kind of just how they feel about their own religion. They all think that their religion's right, and that's the only way.
Yeah, everybody else is, yeah.
And if you don't accept it, you're not going to make it to the afterlife. And then there's some that even try to scare you into believing and fearing God, and it's like, I don't agree with that either.
That's what turned me off as a kid, you know.
So it's kind of, I get what you're saying, but I've noticed that it seems like that it's like that across the board. It seems like with them, because they just get so committed that that's the only way that their religion's right, and they know it.
Yep.
They just know.
Oh, they're big time on that.
Well, what happens to the kids? They say that like you're responsible for your children, like to raise them and bring them up in the truth and all that stuff. And I was like, well, what about like the people that are handicapped or mentally disabled and they can't
understand and go into
follow that path?
Yeah.
Or if you're a kid but your parents don't bring you up into the truth, you miss out on that because you didn't have a chance to. And there is, that's just how
and the spouses that won't take to it, and basically 8 billion people will die, and only them will survive. And the whole 144,000 going to heaven, and the rest of them, only 144,000 that'll get to go to heaven, supposedly, but
and then the rest will be on earth.
Right.
Like, you know.
Right, cleaning up the dead bodies and everything, and you know, not making fun of it or anything, but that's kind of like how I correlate all that, and but if you listen to Paul's in the gospel and everything, all you need to do really is have faith, you know, in your heart that Jesus is the Savior and everything, and you know, and according to the rules, I'm saying this like a pragmatic sort of, you know, by the book, not religiously that I believe it, but that's the rules. He said it's said like a good 40 times in there or so, you know. But they kind of make you want to think that you have to go through the JW system, get baptized. That's one of the stipulations, and follow the faithful and discreet slave, you know, who they came out on their broadcast saying that they're not inspired. So if you're not inspired, why am I following you? Where I could just go, you know, these are arguments I have in my head when I talk to my wife directly, and the kids eventually, they're too young to understand. So
for sure. That's good though, you know, that they haven't yet, and hopefully she'll agree to that.
Oh yeah, and then
that's a huge thing, you know.
It definitely is. And even if they do personally get baptized or anything, it still doesn't mean anything. You know, they could still sort of wake up. But I'm like,
there's always a chance.
Yeah.
You know, don't make a decision to veer off. And
gotcha. And I'm pretty much warning them. This is what's going to happen. If you mess up or you get caught smoking because you're experimenting, they're going to kick you out. That's a disfellowshipping offense. So you're going to lose everyone, all your friends and everyone, and a lot of your family members, you know, and for what, smoking? And from that point on, their theology, you're kicked out of the organization. So if Armageddon happens, you're gonna eat dust while everybody else gets, you know.
Yeah, it's like you're supposed to repent, you know.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, but your whole support system just shuns you.
That
seems like that would just make you want to fall off the path even more.
Right.
So it's that's complicated.
And with YouTube and social media and stuff like that, all these fellowship people that are asking questions, they didn't get kicked out because of immorality. They just questioned the dogma, they're telling their stories and everything. I'm getting pointers from them and stuff. It's kind of like a full-time deal thing with me on the sly, because if I go out full, like I'm talking to you with my wife, she'll be like, oh my God,
You gotta
I'm in.
choose your battles with that. Yeah, for sure.
It's like I'm in spiritual danger. I gotta get out. Exactly. I'm constantly walking on eggshells, and it doesn't define our relationship. I mean, it's only
No, that's good.
it's only 5 or 10% of maybe, I wouldn't say hostility, but differences.
The hardest thing is raising children.
That's it.
With it.
That's
the
it.
complicated part.
So that's why they want you sort of to marry within the faith. So you got the double teaming of whatever, so they don't get no outside perspective.
Because it just Mormons are the same. They want to marry within, and they encourage that. But they're kind of starting to be a little more open to marrying outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I love my uncle to death. I just trip out on how they can be so immersed in a faith that's based on some stones.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
So, okay, man, I don't know.
And Jesus is the brother of Satan and all that.
I don't even get into that with them. We keep our relationship.
Oh yeah, same here.
Separate from the religion, because that's just crazy.
Most of my family's on here is mostly her family, so I'm I'm just outgunned, or outmanned and stuff. But I just keep to myself. I don't get into these discussions with them or anything, So, but with my kids, I ask a lot of questions, sort of to try to get my point across. It's like, hey, what happened? Like, what happens if you get this fellowship and Armageddon happens? You're gonna get killed.
And hopefully they'll have that kind of critical thinking to ask those questions as they grow.
Oh yeah, just me being there, they're like that. It's like, hey, Pablo, why don't you call God Jehovah? And I'm like, because that's not his real name, and I go get into it.
Definitely a complex issue, religion.
Oh yeah.
I remember taking philosophy in college, and I was already a critical thinker, but that made me start questioning my own.
Oh man, I bet. It's probably why they don't want you to go through higher education. They preach about that a lot.